So today, what we're going to do is really just show a few of applications of how we can utilize some of this data. So, a big thing we talk about is making, all these data streams, everything, and making it actionable, making, on the user end experience, some way for them to, change something operationally, develop an efficiency, save costs, all of that. So Cordy just mentioned, and really the title of this is comparing and tracking consumables. So how do I keep track of everything? How do I keep track of it? How do I make sense of it all and make something positive out of it? So what we're going to cover today, part of the presentation, are some common data analytics challenges we see as the industry, especially on the completion side. Really from there is a few targeted applications that we have here at Corva that can help our customers, help our end users, how to mitigate this and solve this. And we'll go through those in more detail, as well as software demonstration of how to navigate these pieces, actually use it, the case studies behind it, and then finally some questions and answers at the end. So to frame really this topic, and it's something that, our customers here and remotely, they know this, and that on the completion side and really compared to the drilling side, there's kind of an industry, there's a gap. Frankly, there's not as much adoption, or it's just behind the times in terms of how do we aggregate all this data. A lot of times we're dealing with a lot more data on the completion side compared to the drilling side. So, and you'll see right here on our four pieces, kind of four common problems we see. Data volume. So the amount of data that's coming in, it's how it's coming in. What do we make of it? How do we make sense of this? It's all, various formats, various pieces. That's the second piece, is the format. Frac vendor to frac vendor, a lot of times you're looking at, it's coming through a serial, it's coming through, however. How do we make sense of that and ingest it? Another piece that we constantly see is the data quality. So kind of the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. Whatever we're getting, we have to make sure, yes, we do get it. We have huge volumes of it, but it's actionable and we know how to deal with it and synthesize it from that standpoint. And finally, with all of these coming together, how are we going to visualize this information? How are we going to, put it all together, see, learn, glean something from it, so where at the end of the day, we can make some decisions off of this, and we could change our operations and our efficiencies from that nature. So how we do that, there's typically three type of things in organizations that have to be available to adopt this to make it effective. So one, most organizations are having to have digital champions that are actually spearheading, getting the ball moving on how we're going to get all of this information together, put it in piece. From that, a type of organizational adoption. So really looking from there is, a buy-in from top down, down to the field levels, down to the office level of, we're committed to getting all this data together. We're committed to utilizing some of these tools to really help us improve. And then speaking of those tools, the digital technology that enables us for this decision making. And that's really what we're going to cover today and what Corva can provide to our customers. So a few targeted applications. Majority of this is going to be spent actually in the platform itself, but our well comparison application. So variety of users probably familiar with what this is, but I really want to show key differences and ways you could really leverage it and utilize it. But the point of how it's pulling in is tracking all your consumables that are pumped in the course of your job, deploying a heat map type model to show how much you're using and the severity of it over time. And it enables very quick usage modeling, all of that from that standpoint. Another applications are stage design versus actual, which I'll show how that works, comparing what we have on a design basis to what's actually pumped and reported. So again, and I'll really cover how this is important, how customers can use it with their vendors, again, making that process more efficient. Finally is some targeted SQL applications. So SQL, it's basically a part of our platform where we can custom and pull from the various collections we have to create other visualizations and apps from that. We collect a whole variety of information, and some of our basic applications we already have, they're not always what or kind of our stock view of being displayed. So this is another way we could showcase that, visualize that, view that from that standpoint. So now go into a software demonstration. So now here we are, this is Corva itself. So top application showing this right here is our well comparison application. So basis piece of it is it's collecting all of your pressure and your rate data stage by stage basis. So, and it's not only, as I highlight over, I could show my average treating pressure, max, average rates, max rates. I can also visualize some various other pressure indicators. So if I'm looking at my breakdown, my ISIP, my delta, those various pieces. But really the importance of it and how it can be shown is correlating this with what we have on a consumable standpoint stage by stage. So for this demonstration, we're looking at, let's say, one well. So let's say it's 3 beep. So you want to have here, and I want to track my various consumables. So the beauty of Corva and how we ingest and kind of pull all this in there is that all the information that's coming from the field, we have ability to show it and demonstrate it and visualize it right here. So let's say, for instance, I want to see my FR usage. So common, chemical, basically for your treating. Maybe I want to know how much of my prop am I actually putting away per stage. I want to see that as well. I also want to look at my fluid volume. So I'm running cross-linker, slick water, so on and so forth. So what this app is showing is, as I highlight over and hover over here, all these various stages, it pulls in all my pressure and rate data for that well at that point in time. And it correlates it to the consumable that was used. So as I just highlighted over these various consumables, I could see my liquid FR, I could see my proppant that was pumped, so on and so forth. Now, one question that you may be asking is, well, what's the difference in the color scheme? So this is the usability and kind of where the magic comes to work on how it makes it actionable and easy. So far right, you have what's called a heat map. This heat map designates basically the usage of that consumable at that point in time. So your, kind of darker red color, that's going to represent higher usage. Lower kind of yellow color, lower usage. And in an easy to read format, you could see it stage by stage, so on and so forth. So, in this case, this is demo data for demonstration purposes, but, a variety of stages clustered together, a lot higher FR usage, lower FR usage, so on and so forth. So all of this, it's all in one spot and it's together. And really the secret to this is, in my previous experience as a completions engineer, I was typically, to get to this point, I was having to download CSV files, run into a Spotfire tool. Maybe I had to send to one of my technical specialists to have this information together. By the time it would have been loaded, put it in, visualized, the pad probably would have already been completed. So any chance of me trying to get information from this, see this, investigate would have been gone. It would have been missing. So, and again, it's any of these consumables, any of these pieces. So let's say, for instance, and there's a variety of visualization usage, but I'll give a quick case study of specifically how this app's been used in the past with some of our customers. So I'm looking at this one particular well. And again, if I want to compare all wells on a pad together, just one well, that's just using our mode selector feature right here, pad mode. So 2, 3 well pad, however you'd like, you'd be able to see it. Let's say for demonstration, I'm looking at one well and maybe I want to compare well to well, pad to pad. We have that feature and we can do that and pull it up in just a couple of clicks. So let's say I have another well I want to look at. So using the offset wells feature right here, I click on this information. Any pad that we have in Corva, you'll be able to pull it up within a click of a button. You could select it. You could select that other well you want to see. So maybe previous pad was, maybe we're stacked frac. Previous pad was had the 5B well on it. Maybe the one before that had the 4B well on it. I highlight those, click save. And now all that information is all together. So again, I can compare it pad level, previous well, previous pad. There's no limit. It's very quick and easy to pull all this together. So case study, we've seen and most people look at it is, all right, I'm noticing my FR usage. I can see it stage by stage. That's great. That's fantastic. What is that going to tell me? What action do I take off from this? So I can look and see this information. So let's say we're looking at stage 30 right here. I'm looking at 2 different stages, 2 different wells. We'll just for demonstration purposes, this is the same pad. Same target formation, pretty much everything's aligned, cluster spacing, pump schedule, everything. Why are these 2 stages different? Why did I have to pump so much more FR to get this away compared to these 2 stages? And, I'm starting to see this kind of around in these areas. So what I can do is I could look at my pressure and my rates, and, quickly I could tell if I'm noticing, well, maybe on the 5B that had my highest FR usage, I was riding the line on pressure, wasn't able to get up rate. Maybe I had a pump go down, all of that. Okay, that makes sense. That's useful information. I can know that, learn that, leverage it later if I want to, contractual purposes for pump maintenance, so on and so forth. But one specifically we see, and it's actually pretty common, especially as the next year brought this up as well. With a lot of activity is going to start ramping back up. There's going to be a lot of new consultants coming on, and maybe engineers or so on. They may not be super comfortable with them. So, and we've seen it to where we had an engineer. They were looking at this information, and they would notice it was a pad in the Permian. They had a cluster of probably 3 to 4 stages that had higher usage, 3 to 4 stages, lower usage, higher, lower, high. It's all about midway in the pad. They noticed this trend, and they're like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. What's happening here?" Looked at your pressure and rate responses. There really wasn't a big difference. There wasn't enough of a case to, why did we need to run all this FR? So as a result, it enabled quicker, actionable decision making to investigate to see. Engineer calls the field and say, "Hey, what are you running your FR set points to?" And basically one consultant gave one answer, the other gave the other. And they found out it was purely based on, just what he felt comfortable with, what he used to running. But the point being is that they were able to catch it early enough to where, hey, why don't we try and bump it down? I'm not seeing, the pressure rate responses that are indicative or it's really even needed. Why don't we change it? Let it ride out for the rest of the job. Let's see what happens. Ended up being fine, more efficient, actually able to pump the jobs away a little better. And they saved all that money on chemicals. So again, huge cost savings, and it's just because the data is actionable, is in front of you. That there's so much of that, and that's kind of the point I wanted to touch on first is that, really, it's an industry kind of a problem of it at first is, can I see the data, can I get it? Second is, what do I do with it? And this is really a quick and easy way that you can make something very actionable, very effective, very quickly, and we've seen that and used that as well. So that's our well comparison application. Here's our stage design versus actual. So similar format in terms of what we're pulling in and how we're visualizing. So how this application works is it updates automatically stage by stage basis of your consumables pump compared to design. So, we've talked before about how we can pull in, we bring in static information from your design, the real-time information, and then PJR information. So what's actually reported by the vendor. So how this tool has really been used, and over the course of a stage, course of a job, it's going to actually automatically calculate, how close you are in your variance to design. So if we had a case where maybe we had an iron leak, we got 87% of our proppant away. Let's say we decided to move to the next stage, it would actually show you only pumped 87% of your total proppant volume. Now, how this is mostly used in 2 different ways, and there's 2 schools of thought on it, and the key is when I look over here. So you can set it to, if I want the mode based off straps or design. So if I have it on straps, my front interface, so if you can see right here, there's a graphical input and tabular input. It's going to calculate design versus straps. Now, if I leave it on tabular, which you can see right here, it'll compare both. And how this could be really useful. So one, for customer adoption. Some folks, they may just they trust their frac vendor. They want straps, they'll have that there. They'll have that information. Now, some, they want to compare the 2. And what we have a lot of customers doing is, and this, again, it's kind of how Nextyear mentioned it previously, data transparency. So when it comes time to the end of the job, the ticket comes in, you can actually set this to where you can see all stages as a whole in a well, and you can quickly compare the 2. So you can look and see between the real-time values that are calculated versus the straps versus design. And if there's a huge variance, that gives, that customer ammunition to look at it. Or at the same point, again, it's the same information. They could see it. They could actually look, and it just makes that process, there's no fighting over a ticket at the end of the day. It makes it efficient, easy. Some customers want to use like an automated ticketing process. This is part of that, and it helps enable that information. So again, it enables the customer with the information, actionability, all of those pieces from that standpoint, and they could use that. Finally, like I said, with all this information coming in, there's a whole variety of features and tools we could do with this. We've talked about, building custom maps in the Dev Center. We have that feature, but this is also another key tool for visualization in terms of information we're pulling in. A couple of examples. So we're looking at diesel usage. So this is just calculating and showing me, per stage, what's my burn rate, natural gas substitution percentages and rates. The beauty of this application, though, is it's built off of a SQL visualizer query, which really is, I have the ability to, either myself, our team, we can work with our customers to build things on the fly to give you a visualization to look at if you're trying to see, maybe I want wireline stages per 24 hours or a different type of view that may not be in our stock setting. This will allow us to do that because, one, we have that information, we have the collections to pull from. It'll show it from here as well. So again, enabling that view of that information in a single dashboard, one comprehensive format, helps that decision making and shows that. And a couple other pieces, just some examples of how that could be used. So like I said, diesel usage. So if that's being pulled in, either static information off reports, stream through the channels in the frac van, we could plot it, put it here. Calculating horsepower per stage. A lot of frac contracts are based off of this. Calculating this information, comparing those, seeing, especially for ticketing, all of that. An application to show how long it's taking you to get to the desired target rate. So, if we're trying to change our pump schedules to optimize that piece, get to the design rate, we could pump those stages away more quickly, see that information. But sky's the limit on terms of various pieces and applications we could build from this outside as well. So it just shows flexibility, agility of the platform from that standpoint. So really, well, let me go back to the slides. Wraps up our piece there on the visualization, and time for a question and answer session.